marshals and sheriffs, then you can start going over. I'll tell you what's going to happen. We're going to see in Bristol last 2 weeks ago.
Head off after this.
Oh yeah, I saw that. And they served the council on the 14th of October.
But
it's happening.
Do you want to get a view?
I've been asked to do the talking.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'm
This one.
in a suit and tie. I'll be doing the
We can chat about getting this up and stuff. So I'm going to need you to stick this up on Google Drive.
Go in.
Right? I'll suck it down and I'll just pluck some bits out from Twitter. I'll tag
everyone go.
Piers Corbin, his PA or assistant, whatever, said that he'll then retweet those. So much fucking
Depends how high you go. You're going to get pretty close.
Even I follow him.
These are the ones. You've got to remember that George was Justice Lewis that's serving the Simon Williams. His granddad was best mate with like Timmy Savage.
Engagement,
Come on, you know the sort of surface.
Saturation, man. It's great. It's going well, man.
Anyway, so
sorry, go on.
Let's go then, guys.
Right.
So it's like you got to.
Okay.
Yep, we're good.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Kerry. I've been part of Stand Up X for a few months now.
From May. Is it from May?
From May.
Yeah,
Yes.
from May. The big ones in Hyde Park.
And there's something personal I need to speak about. This is actually the first time I'm speaking about it. I've written a little speech, so I'd like to share that. 1 second.
Technology, hey guys.
Can you speak up a bit louder, please?
Yeah. It's the first time she's ever spoken.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's about something very personal.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no, but personal as in it's coming from the interior, so it's going to come from the heart, so it's the first time it needs to be exposed.
So I've been extremely let down by the police and I've experienced extreme corruption amongst medical staff. My story sounds outlandish, it is. The levels of deception and meticulous planning all to target one individual is extreme. I don't expect everyone to believe me and I can't let my fear of rejection or being labelled as crazy get in the way of my truth about what happened to me any longer. I've been to a few protests and I've met such open-minded, compassionate people. I really hope some people here will listen to me with open hearts in a place where I'm allowed to speak freely. I have hope speaking here to all of you, as I know we're all clued up on the fact that satanic ritual abuse and occult practices are very real. They aren't fantasy. In January, I was targeted and physically attacked by people extremely high up in the elite operating in the UK. They've done everything in their power to cover up any evidence. I believe I am wrapped up in all of this due to pissing off a man who raped me, who is involved in the cult. I've been a victim of gang stalking, which is a criminal phenomenon in which loosely affiliated people in an organised manner relentlessly invade all areas of an individual's life with the intent to instill fear within a victim in order to discredit, drive to suicide, cause incarceration or institutionalisation. A victim can be a target from whistleblowing or activism. In my case, I spoke out very openly on Facebook about a previous sexual assault in which I named my rapist, who is an extremely dangerous individual who clearly has high up criminal connections. The other girls spoke to me about how he raped them also. These girls didn't get justice either. Since the incident, I experienced disturbing episodes of during sleep where I had bodily dissociation and visceral sensations of being held down and raped. I experienced auditory hallucinations of the grotesque words he said in my ear. I disclosed this information on my Facebook, deeming it to be sleep paralysis, but I am now 100% aware that these experiences were full-scale demonic attacks. I got so much support from friends and family, and I received multiple messages from other sexual assault survivors sharing their stories with me. It was very empowering, and I found peace in that I was able to be a voice for other girls he had affected. After the huge realization of what had happened to me and the relief of sharing my story, I felt the best I had in years. Before my Facebook post, I did not realise my rapist's extreme influence and connections. I ruined his reputation for something he did to me, and since he has been indirectly attacking me, trying to humiliate me and discredit me. So, the harassment started in late December in Brighton. There were men who weren't students that were following me to and from the library. One man who was dressed far too young for his age spoke to me, and I thought nothing of it at the time. I ended up finding his profile on the Sussex Police Wanted page, and I recognised some of the other men also. I rang the police to report the stalking. I was completely dismissed. I stated how I strongly believe this must be connected to a Facebook post I have recently made where I named my rapist. The following days, 2 officers said they would be coming round. They never materialised. This same week, other threats. I received feces at my doorstep. 2 of my friends got mugged by knife point. Again, all my reports to the police were dismissed. Around this time, I had the most vivid and disturbing dreams, one of which my back was scratched up by black cats. 2 days later, these are my scars.
Jesus.
So at the end of January, despite all of this going on, I managed to hand in my dissertation in neuroscience with cognitive science. I had openly told people how that day I was going to go to report the rape. Later that evening, lots of people came around my house to celebrate. And there were lots of strangers on my street shouting death threats at me. My phone, my ID license, my house keys went missing. Things felt extremely supernatural. I believe my drink had been spiked and someone had infiltrated my house at night. The rest of the night is mainly a blur, but it was an extremely hostile environment with lots of people who I did not know. I didn't feel safe, so I climbed out of my bedroom window and onto the roof. I shouted out that I was in danger. Next thing I know, a man's on the street below shouting down. I had no intention of jumping. I had no memory of jumping. I had no memory of falling. But what I do remember is hearing an air ambulance, and next thing I know, a very extremely stern, sinister man telling me my life is going to be a loop, I'm going to be targeted, and he said, "Welcome to the government." Next memory I have is lying on my front, conscious but not in any pain at this point, but frozen still, and a group of 5 men surrounding me. These people were sinister. I remember them slashing up my coat, kicking it aside and laughing. At one point I had extremely vivid sensation of my toe being next to a burning candle. The rest was a complete blackout. This was on the night of full moon, and it happened on a satanic celebration day of abduction and sexual and blood sacrifice. Whatever happened to me, I know I was in an induced trance. I was on the roof at midnight, however the police were not called until 2 a.m. and when they did arrive, apparently there were already paramedics there. I do not believe these people were legitimate. I have strong reason to believe they were hired criminals and I was abducted and abused. My medical notes written up by a doctor was horrible to me, said Kerry jumped off a roof and fell 30 feet. My ankles, lower back and wrists were fractured, but the injuries did not seem to be what you would expect from a fall from that height. My sternum is now very predominant, which does not make sense if I fell onto my feet, but the medical staff ignored this. When I got to hospital, they pumped me full of drugs and put me on a ventilator. My medical notes also say it was witnessed by a policeman. However, no one alerted my mum that I was in hospital until I had been there for hours. My parents had heard from my cousin that there was a problem, so they rushed down to Brighton. My mum told me that there were no police at the scene. They had no idea what had happened to me, so this statement on my medical notes is completely fraudulent. My care at the hospital was absolutely appalling. It was like I was in a horror film. Members of staff looked scared, or they were absolutely rude to me. I know for a fact that they had been threatened, bribed or deceived into trying to make my time there as uncomfortable as possible. There were some nights where nurses would come into my bay in the middle of the night, turning on lights, laughing. One night I woke up and I passed out. They deliberately altered the temperature in my bay. I asked the nurse for her name as she was not wearing a name badge. She muttered very quietly and told me I need to shut my mouth and left the ward. I wasn't even given a walking frame, so I had to use one that I found on the ward. Even one day, a member of staff shoved a syringe in my hand and told me to administer a blood-thinning injection myself. It didn't end there. Essentially, also none of the patients changed. I believe they were planted and associated with each other. They openly showed me this. The man that had threatened me in the ambulance was there visiting a patient next to me, watching me intently. He came every single day, and Sorry. Another patient opposite me was visited by another man, and I recognised him to be my rapist's father, as I'd seen photos of him on Facebook. And on one day, my rapist himself had the audacity to come and visit, and he was going by a different name. I regret not saying anything at the time. I was in shock. I didn't even have a phone to take photos with, as I went missing on that night. And on his way out, he winked at the woman next to me, the woman who was associated with the man who threatened me in the ambulance. Despite the staff's and patients' best efforts to intimidate me and instill me with fear, I remained extremely headstrong, positive and collected, keeping true to myself. I was supposed to be discharged to go home. I suddenly got bombarded with staff asking for my addresses, which, given to the circumstances, I didn't feel comfortable disclosing. Literally just like that, due to being indecisive and scared about giving away my personal details, I was pulled to a side room and told I'm going to have to be sent to a mental hospital the following morning by two very stern psychologists that I'd never encountered before. The consultant did not even give me a name badge he would show me. Again, it was an absolute circus at the mental health hospital I was taken away to. When I arrived, they forced me to take loads of drugs. Half the patients looked terrified and ignored me, and some were insulting and bullying me. Again, there were definitely people in there trying to make my time uncomfortable. They wouldn't let me see a consultant in order to be discharged, despite being promised every single day, as they would suddenly be off leave or on sick. And then I was rushed off to a second mental institute. But after one night there, I finally spoke to a consultant who said I was absolutely fine to leave. But things did not return normal when I got back to my house in Cambridge. My accounts were still being hacked. There were still people that I did not know on my street. Sorry. Yeah. I tried to make contact with the police again. After I mentioned my name, he said his words were, "You sound tired. Have you been doing your uni assignments? And why don't you just delete your Facebook account?" That was his only advice. So the next couple of weeks I experienced a multitude of extremely paranormal experiences. I was not religious before all this, far from it. I was heavily involved in drugs, alcohol, sex. I lied, I stole, everything. But I'm leaving that life behind now, and I've felt protection from God and from the divine. What we're experiencing right now is not just a conflict between us and the elite. It is truly a spiritual warfare. It is truly a battle between God and Satan for our souls. I'm sure most of you know about the sick human sacrifices that occur amongst the elite. Although these people are twisted, these aren't just for fun. They are genuinely harvesting and releasing pure and innocent energy sacrificially. They deliberately invert and pervert the exact opposite of God's image. I have personally witnessed the demon possessed, and I have personally experienced demonic attacks. I hope by sharing my testimony, other people can open their hearts out to the higher divine. And if there's ever a time to make lifestyle changes to avoid anything that makes us vulnerable to Satan, it is now. If there's ever a time to pray to God, it is now. The elite know our secrets of our reality, and I genuinely think I am wrapped up in all of this due to a very strong spiritual connection to my rapist's demonic spirit, and I am certain the men at the hospital and the patient and my rapist are part of high in the elite of people, and I am somehow related to the commencing of the New World Order. The incident that night happened literally a week before news of COVID, and I have no doubt that my rapist is involved with Satanists high up in the establishment. I am not on any antipsychotic medication. I am not receiving any treatment. I am a normal, healthy, confident young girl. And I've been so alone in this. I am grateful for any support, and I'm grateful to have found a place and a family to be able to talk about these things without being judged. Thank you.
Some testimony there. Thank you.
Thank you. I hate public speaking. I wouldn't do this if I didn't feel like I needed to.
It's the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. You got 30 minutes 40 on here. So
no.
you want to carry on, yeah? Do you want to say anything?
I was just going to say well done to Kerry for coming out. Yeah, Kerry's one of the speakers up and coming. We've got lots of speakers, people like Piers Corbyn, and we've got David Icke, Gareth Icke, Jamie Icke did a speech in Brighton on Friday. Kerry was there as well. So Jamie Icke is Gareth's brother and David Icke's son. He did his speech for the first time because he's got a young boy that was born in May, right in the middle of COVID, and he had to go into the hospitals with a baby and coming out, and he was like, well, everyone was no one there, it was all dead. And he was questioning the narrative, but he was, looking at things from his perspective. And it's about time that people, in essence, stand up and speak their truth, what's going on. Because the more people stand up and talk, the more people that get online and saturate social media with their truths, with their perceptions of the things they're seeing. And obviously whistleblowers, doctors, nurses, medical science, neurologists, biologists, law, people working in law and legal systems. Everyone, every man in his dog, every woman in his dog. We've all got a story to tell, we've all got a perspective, and we can put it online, we can put it out there, we can write it, we can do creative poetry, do songs, do music, like what's happening. Put it out there, the energy just builds and builds and builds. And as I said, I've said a lot, I said in my talks, Trafalgar Square 29th, August 29th. I was in the pig pen, as I call it, next to the speaker stage. I got up, looked around, and I got a feeling, and it's not a feeling like a message, I got like enlightened. It was a feeling, and I transpired that feeling into words, and the words were, we have already won. We have already won this. It's just a matter of time. And the thing is, and I liken it to moving a mountain. You move a mountain one pebble at a time. But if you've got 10,000 people, you can move it a bit quicker. If you've got 1 million people, 5 million people, 10 million people, that mountain gets shifted super quick. And the whole point of speaking up is taking that stone, moving it to the side. That is your effort, that's your time and putting into it. And we've already won this, guys. We've already won it. You can't stop the awakening of humanity. Humanity is just rising up and rising up. You can't dampen down those flames and those light. It's as simple as that. It's just a matter of time. As soon as people say no, they take the mask off. No, the faster it happens. It's up to you as an individual, you as a mass, you as a culture, you as a tribe and community. Once you all decide to say no, it stops. It's the merry-go-round. If you want to get off, say stop. But you have to have the, I suppose, experience, the knowledge, the wisdom, the courage to step up and go, you know what, no more. I've had enough. I've had no more. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-education. I'm pro-knowledge. I'm pro-wisdom. I'm not anti-anything. I'm not against anything. Because I'm against something, that means there's a divide. I'm for it. I'm for people having their freedom of choice and freedom of speech. Talk about it, whatever. I don't care if I like what you talk about. The fact is, I'm giving you the choice to do it, and you're letting me have the choice to do it. And then we can just banter about it. And if we don't, we can just, we can go about our own ways, but not separate ways, because we live in the same bloody ocean of life. Yeah. Well, this is the reason why I do what I do. I do 2 cities every weekend pretty much. And I'm not doing it for me, I'm not doing it for my kids, I'm not doing it for my great-grandkids, I'm doing it for my great-great-great-grandkids that haven't been born yet. This is not a world they're coming into. Not if I've got breath in my body. They're not coming into this world. 2 things will happen with my great-great-grandchildren. They're going to be told one story that's going to be told in 2 different ways, and I don't know which way yet. Either their parents will sit them on the lap and they're telling them about their great-great-granddad, and they're telling what I've done and what I did, but I'll be dead. That's fine. Or it's going to be me sat on their knee, and I'm going to tell them what I did. Either, but it's going to happen because we've already won, guys. We have already won this. Done. Anyway, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.